Hi guys, I am here with a true story. This one is by Lily Crowder and it is called Unexpected Beautiful Joy. Be good, Sherm. He likes to aggravate me. Stop it. I grew up in a Christian home. Though it was very broken and dysfunctional, I was raised with the knowledge of Christ. But I became the typical Christian good girl gone bad. After a series of sad events and foolish choices, I turned away from my faith and was basically plain old naughty. The unwise choices I kept making and the harmful people I kept migrating toward left me in a state of depression and emptiness. I knew what was right and godly, but I refused to live that way. I hated myself for it. My struggle with identity and feelings of unworthiness made me hungry for healthy affirmation and affection. I was your classic young woman looking for love in all the wrong places. It wasn't too long before I ended up pregnant at the age of 18. I had to humbly face my old Christian community and small town friends, move in with my mom and live on welfare. It was such a lonely, humiliating time in my life. Being knocked up and abandoned by someone who had claimed to care for me was overwhelmingly heartbreaking, to say the least. For the duration of my pregnancy, I focused on trying to get my life back together. I had a desperate hunger to make up for all the wrong I've done. I felt so undeserving of anything good. I thought I was going to be punished for all my sins, and that God was going to give me a horribly challenging baby. I felt so alone, undeserving, unworthy, unfit, worthless, and scared. I asked God to turn the mess I had made into something beautiful. When my labor finally came on, I had no idea what was about to happen. I could only anticipate an outcome from a place of fear, rejection, and uncertainty. But despite my fragile state, I could feel the love and gentleness of Jesus. That day changed my life forever. I gave birth to a beautiful and healthy baby girl. She was amazing, so perfect, such a tiny wonder. In those first few moments with her, I couldn't help but thank and praise the Lord for her life. My love for her came from deep within and was overwhelming and unexpected. I never knew that love this deep for another person existed. I named her Miley, which is Hawaiian for beautiful, joy. Knowing I didn't deserve such a gift, I asked God, what about my punishment? I did everything wrong, and yet here I am holding this beautiful, perfect baby girl, a perfect gift. Every day she got cuter. She had 2 huge dimples when she smiled, and glorious, perfect baby rolls. She was so happy. To this day, I still call her Smiley Miley. As a new mom, I felt God's grace and presence in the ways He provided a natural new love, an inspiration for me and Miley. When all my friends were out on the town and I was home alone with my baby, I knew God had a plan, and that Miley was one of the best parts of it. I really enjoyed being a mom, even a single mom. Miley and I did everything together. God also provided me a job as a nanny, so I was able to take my baby girl with me to work. Because of her wonderful demeanor, I was even able to take her to college classes. At times, I would still think of her future and the lack of a father. I would feel guilty for her inability to provide everything I thought she needed. Those feelings were often paralyzing, yet I would talk to God about it. I asked Him to provide what we needed most in His way of timing. The day after I turned 22, I met a tall, dark, handsome, and witty man named John. I could barely stand when I first spoke to him, and nor could he. Something in me knew that he was the one, yet I was afraid. Later on, I even tried to hide from him in the basement of the church where we met. It was so obvious to everyone around us that there was more than chemistry between us. It was love. For the first time in my life, I felt real supernatural love. Along with falling in love with me, John also fell in love with my little blue-eyed girl. While we were engaged and while John was away on a work trip, he wrote me a letter confessing what was taking place in his heart for my little girl. The idea of being her father was effortless and natural, as if it had always been part of the plan. John adopted Miley shortly after we were married. She was 3 at the time and had grown to know and trust him as if he's always been with us from the very first day. Miley became and is still to this day Daddy's girl. The bond and connection they share is amazing to see. Since our marriage, God has blessed John and me with 3 more delightful children. Before I met John, I remember a time when my daughter was about 2. I was alone in my little home, and I opened my Bible for the first time in a long while. I found myself reading Luke 7:47. I tell you, her many sins have been forgiven, as her great love has shown. But whoever has been forgiven little loves little. I am so thankful that because I have been forgiven much, God has enabled me to not only love again, but to love much. I still remember the feeling of being an outsider. When I see a young girl or single mom who is struggling, I am able to encourage her by sharing my story. I truly wouldn't trade this transformation and what God has done for anything, even with all the awkward and hard moments involved. God's love unexpectedly burst into my life and made things new. We love because God first loved us. 1 John 4:19. And I hope you guys have a good night.